with her big dumb face.
The longest opening sequence.
It's Alice midlife crisis.
Oh my god, it's so good, guys.
We're not told that. Yeah, we do. We're not told that. It is written. It is written. What's up, McCurds?
What's going on, Chicky Rants?
We're doing a little makeup session here. This movie came out
a week there
ago.
that we wanted to do this one, right?
Yeah.
So we were like, I went and saw it thinking we are going to do it that week. Charlie was out of town. Couldn't do it. So we were like, all right, well,
so here we are.
Do a makeup session. Finish this one out. Because I do think this one's definitely worth putting on the list, in my opinion. So I don't know what you thought. Maybe you went into the movie and thought this was a hot pile of ooze. Or maybe
slime.
Slime.
Consider this movie slimed.
Ooh.
Consider it slimed.
Oh no. Okay.
You ready to go?
Sure.
All right. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is a giant pile of postmodern Seth Rogen weed-induced Spider-Verse wannabe garbage. I'm just kidding. I love this movie.
I feel like you can go to the beginning of that and then you just take out garbage and put
it still all applies. It still all applies.
Yeah.
No,
except for the garbage.
I love this movie. I had a huge smile on my face the whole time. So anyway, I'm going to continue.
Awesome.
I'm going to continue. Okay. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is terrific. I definitely had a big smile on my face for most of this movie. And why is that? Nostalgia? Revisiting my childhood? No, I love this movie because it felt like the people making it actually cared about the characters and that the characters behaved and spoke true to themselves as mutants and or teenagers or father figures or relatably embittered and vengeful bad guys. And then built over top of that is a clear destroy all humans plot that easily carries a simple story of longing to belong in a world that typically runs from or destroys anything regarded as unfamiliar or alien, which is exactly how people would initially react to 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, their giant rat father, and all of their mutant bad guy cousins seeking revenge for humanity's mutant phobia. This movie brings it on every level, a fresh and apt style of animation, good humor, good fun, motivated bad guys with a sympathetic plot, excellent characterization and fulfillment of individual character arcs, a killer soundtrack, lots of pizza, and all wrapped up in the most comprehensive and appropriately awkward origin story the Turtles have ever seen on the big screen. All that's left to say, my dear McCurdy, is cowabunga.
Cowabunga.
Mm-hmm. Did they say that in the movie?
They do. They
do, because I afterwards I was like, wait, they had to have, but I may have been dreaming about what I was going to write, because I was like like most of the movie I was like this. I was like, this is good. I like this. This is good. You know, which I always say every time. I'm like, I go into every movie hoping that that'll be the case, and then most of the time I walk out just being disillusioned and
I love K1 right here. So above or below plane?
Good questions.
Yeah,
very good question.
I don't know.
So we'll get there.
We'll get there. Right?
That's the question of the night, really. So you go ahead, sir.
Let's go get ranked, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working on that catchphrase. We got to workshop that. Let's get ranked, shall we?
Like it first, should be for the joke to land. Like something has to be censored in there, but then would people understand it?
Yeah,
that it's a reference to get fucked.
So first off, if you haven't already, I did this on Sunday, but you should get your ranked t-shirts. Ranked t-shirts.
It's a beautiful design.
It's a beautiful shirt.
I really enjoy the design.
Huevos, thank you for coming out on this lovely Tuesday evening to talk about Turtles with us. And this is Huevos. He's modeling off our merch, so it's beautiful. I love it. I love it.
He wrote keep talking, but he wrote a quick rap, a very quick rap that is right here. How would he have done this? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Shout out to Charlie, Nance, and McCurdy. Hope this movie isn't turdy. Sipping whiskey sour turtle power. I don't know if I hit the flow right. But it's something like that.
That's great.
Anyway.
I love it. That's great. Okay. All right, here we go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Get ranked. 2023 review. directed by Jeff Rowe, screenplay by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, Jeff Rowe, Dan Hernandez, and Benji Samit, story by Bernard O'Brien, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and Jeff Rowe, and based off characters by Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. I'm gonna dive right in here, Charlie. Get ready. So, New England commercial illustrators with a love of comic books, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were in the midst of working on their own comics when one of them drew a picture of a turtle with nunchucks as a joke. The joke being was having the agility and fighting prowess of Bruce Lee. The two went back and forth, adding to the joke, and eventually became a self-published black and white book titled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The first issue that was printed on an oversized magazine style, probably because they couldn't get anywhere to do a proper comic book dimensions. There's also there's probably a more true reason, I'm not sure. And then it sold that first initial printing. They had over 3,000 copies. They sold all of them within weeks. They would go on to basically make more comics, and they were all self-publishing these, and they kept selling more and more and more.
Wow.
So the early Turtle comics were very different from the ones that most people think of. I'm sorry, the early Turtles in the comics were very different. The first issue was more violent and darker in tone, as was most of the comic run. Eastman and Laird used Frank Miller's work as satire or parody on the book, specifically Daredevil. If you don't know who Frank Miller is, Dark Knight Returns.
Look it up.
Did a run on, look it up.
Look it up and go consume it.
Daredevil. He did a run on Daredevil. He also did some other comics that they were fans of. But specifically, let's talk about Daredevil. If you're familiar with Daredevil, if you watch the Netflix show, his origin story is sort of tied into the Turtles, where supposedly the same ooze that blinds Matt Murdock, aka the Daredevil, is the same mutagen that mutates the Turtles. Also, the Foot Clan and Master Splinter are homages or parodies to the Hand and Daredevil's mentor Stick. This particular film makes reference to the dark and gritty comics, the Turtles having the classic white eyes like most mask-wearing superheroes in comic books, and Leonardo spouting out a dark poetic soliloquy that is quickly made fun of. I'm shortening the story here, but basically Turtles caught on. Playmates Toys saw potential in Turtles to sell toys. In those days, cartoon shows were mostly created to do just that. G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, My Little Pony, etc. And in 1987, kids everywhere got an ultra-friendly version of the Turtles on Saturday mornings with a catchy theme song, colorful bandanas, and individual personalities. I'll note by saying that this begins a schism of sorts in the franchise. On one hand, you have the much more darker tone Turtles, its own canon and lore that differs from the cartoons. For instance, April isn't a reporter. Baxter Stockman's just a mad scientist, but he's more into robotics. Splinter and Shredder, a rivalry is much darker in tone and it's much more violent. On the other hand, you have the lore of the kids' cartoon, whose sole purpose was to sell toys and different weird mutant characters such as Bebop and Rocksteady and the alien from Dimension X, Krang. That's a lot, but that's just a brief brief history.
Yeah.
But
I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, I still own all those toys in the corner. I recently, coincidentally,
let's go back to that. Yeah, tell me about your toys.
My mother showed up at my house and was like, I have this box of turtles. I was like, sweet. so that's
yeah, you should have. That would have been
storage
cool.
To be passed on.
Oh, you should have went back home and got all the turtles and like hung them on here for this one.
And I thought about it, and then I was like, that's a lot of work.
But yeah, you can see like in here you've got the Earl. I've actually got this is a reprint, but I've got a couple of the Turtles original comics.
Nice.
Here, this one's got mutated Shredders. And then you've got, so that's the original, that image on the far left, that's the original cover. And then you've got Eastman and Laird holding a Ninja Turtle there. You've got the kind of the cartoon, essentially the cartoon, but specifically like the bandanas, different colors, their personalities. That wasn't in the comics. That was all done in the cartoon. The comic was black and white, and originally they were all just red, like all of their bandanas were red. I remember specifically as a kid, I went to a garage sale and got the Ninja Turtle, the first Ninja Turtle game. And if you remember the NES Turtles game that that they had that just had a cover of the Turtles, but they all had red bandanas, and I was like, that's weird. Why would they all be Raphael? And then I later learned like that's how they originally looked. They were uniform, and then they changed them for the cartoons, much like Ghostbusters did with the different suits, so flight suits, kind of like Ghostbusters. But
let's
then
get
also you
Cabra
got the
in
few
here
different
to
pictures.
rank all the TMNT video games.
All the TMT video games. Yeah,
That would be
let's do it.
fantastic. Yeah.
So I'm gonna do. I don't think we have time to go over every single film in detail, but I'll make quick sum ups of each movie. Tell me if you've seen them, if you hadn't seen them. We got first one, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, came out in 1990. Pulls much of its story and tone from the original comics, but kept elements from the cartoon. Came out in the wake of Batman. It was only a year after. It was a huge financial success. The story was essentially the Turtles versus Shredder, who doesn't have an ultimate plan, but has gathered up as many of the teens of New York via Pinocchio's Pleasure Island of sorts, and he grooms those kids to be Foot Clan. That's kind of the story. There's not really, there's not like a giant thing in the sky or anything like that. We got TMNT 2, Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, comes out literally a year later. Violence was toned down. The film has Vanilla Ice's only major hit, Go Ninja Go, which I think they make
It was in
reference
this,
to or mentions in this movie.
During their first fight scene, somebody hit a car radio and it was like, "Go ninjas, go ninjas, go!" And then, but that was all they did. I was like, just let it play for the rest of the fight. But
I just want to see that. Yeah,
they didn't. They didn't do that.
Also dives a little bit into their origin story with the ooze, where the ooze comes from, all that stuff, because you learn the secret of the ooze. And then we've got TMNT 3, which came out in 93. Wasn't a success. This one has the Turtles going back in time to ancient Japan. I own it, but I've never seen it.
You've never seen it? Okay, so it's like suddenly they didn't have money. It's rough.
I've heard it's garbage.
It's worth it if you're. I mean, just if you're gonna watch. I mean, like I grew up on all these movies. Like, you might as well watch it. But it's just like it's the classic case of the third movie being terrible for a whole bunch of excuses, including like they didn't have like everything looks really cheap, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So for some
I
reason,
heard like basically and I didn't mention that the first two movies used Jim Henson. Like Jim Henson's last movie was the first Turtles movie.
Wow.
And a lot of the technology that they used for the mask and all that stuff that's all Jim Henson. And I think they used it for the second one. I think the third one wasn't Jim Henson. They got somebody else to do it because they had to make it cheaper, and that's why it looks so rough and doesn't look as good as the first two films.
Yeah, these following three, I haven't seen. Are these all Michael Bay? I haven't seen any of them.
No, they are not. So the fourth one, which is literally just titled TMNT, came out in 2007. A loose continuation of the previous three films. There's like a little minor reference that's sort of, it's very loose. Like there's a scene where you go into Splinter's little room and there's all this, like there's the time travel thing from the third one. You see the ooze canister. You see the Shredder's broken helmet. So it's like they're making like sort of connected, but it's not
like they did in OHMSS, where they're just like, let's have Bond go into his office,
kind of,
and he's like,
where he's like pulls out all the other things
from,
or even Die Another Day, when they bring out all the old gadgets and stuff. So it's sort of based, sort of loosely a continuation.
Yeah.
Usually, like there's like 4 DVD box sets that you can find that have all 4 of those movies together. Yeah. So this it's the first animated film that went to the big screen. Fans seem to like it. It's fine. Some people love it. Some people are just like, it's not the worst, of course, in the series. This film has mostly weird monsters that run loose in the city, and the Turtles begin as if they were separated for some time. So think of like the beginning of Ghostbusters 2, where like, the Ghostbusters, some of them are doing birthdays, some of them work at the university. Well, it's sort of like that, but like Michelangelo's doing birthdays. Raphael's is a vigilante crime fighter, wears a different costume. Leonardo is like left and he went to the woods, and I think Donatello lives with Splinter still or something like that.
Leonardo
come together. Leonardo. And then I think also, Charlie, I think Patrick Stewart voices the villain. That's just a fun little he was the villain in that one. That's cool. And then finally we've got Ninja Turtles 2014 and Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows 2016. Both were produced by Michael Bay, but they were not directed by Michael Bay. I just have to make the distinction, because some people just say Michael Bay movies, and they're like, you didn't direct them, you just produced them. I enjoy the second one much more. I think it's more in line with like this is the Turtles movie. But I think between the character designs and like it suffers a lot of the same problems that Transformers films do, or they don't really focus on the title characters. They focus on the other characters that are, with the Turtles, and so it's messy.
Which is why sometimes people don't distinguish between a Michael Bay production and a Michael Bay, directed film, because it's
right.
The name is marred. It tends to be marred, and I mean, even down to something like, without opening a can of worms, didn't he produce, or he heavily influenced something like A Quiet Place? And there's elements in there that are very Michael Bay-esque. So it's nothing new.
I think he's talented, but I think his talents are used for like a very narrow kind of movie. Like
he's like Zack Snyder. He should have been a cinematographer, but whatever.
He's very much. He should have been. He would have been better if he made silent films. That's really where I
sure.
Go with that one.
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
sure. If you
I had a film professor who was like, good for him. He's killing it, I guess. His casting couch is always full, but fuck that guy. That's like exact quote from my film professor back in the day.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
doing them dirty there. Okay, so we've got screenplay by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldsberg, Dan Hernandez, and Benji Sammet, and I did mention Jeff Rowe already. But Mutant Mayhem, script and story is mostly the brainchild of Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. I think they are best known for the 2008 Superbad, which those characters in the movie are based off of them. They wrote that when they were in high school or whatever, and then eventually they produced it as a movie. Rogen stated in an interview that they wanted to focus mainly on the teenage in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as the jumping off point. It was a jumping off point, but also because they love teenage movies, considering Rogen and Goldberg wrote Superbad. And I think there was another movie that they did. It was more teenage centric type of movie. The other writers credited included the director, we'll get to him, and then Dan Hernandez and Benji Sammet, who are best known for their work on the Detective Pikachu. It's a decent video game movie, at least I think it is. And then Addams Family 2, I've never seen it, so I don't know anything about it. But those are the writers of this movie. And I think, we'll talk about, Mr. Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg when we get more into the movie. But
wasn't there a fifth name attached to
Jeff Rowe, the director?
Okay. Yeah. And so we've talked several times about how, like, when you see 5 names attached to the writing or whatever, it's like, it may be a red flag, but
there is, I will say this. There's a couple of differences in this case. I think one, the team, it's not like sometimes, like I think when a long time ago when we did Space Jam, right? Space Jam had multiple writing teams. This at least has 2 writing teams, and then the director is putting his own spin on certain things. And it's an animated movie. Animated films are a little more loose with how they are produced. And I wasn't trying to rhyme there, but it's not the same. It's not the same thing as like when you're making a live action movies, essentially.
Sure.
And let's go to.
Seemed like everybody knew the direction that it was going in, rather than ideas pulling each other apart to where it becomes a mess. It was it was a very focused story, and like the last few episodes have been about how, again, Haunted Mansion, decent story with a terrible plot, and then what did we just do? We just did Demeter was decent plot with a not so good story. This was the whole bag. This was just like the simple plot, a simple plot easily followed that you could actually sympathize with, coupled with the story being mutants trying to fit into this human world, and both the good guys and the bad guys are mutants trying to fit into this world. So I mean, it was just like the writing shined. The only thing I'll say about the writing is that typically I frown upon. I'm on record several times saying I'm not a big fan of constant pop culture references. I with something like this, I go, that's fine, because they're teenagers. Like they're trying to, they're writing these as largely as teenagers more than ninjas or whatever. Blah blah blah. But this, what bugged me though was that the pop culture references should have been specific to the turtles. But they had bad guys throwing out pop culture references too, and I was like, nah, get rid of that stuff. Like, just have the bad, and I mean bad guys, not the mutants, but I mean the bad guys when they were humans, like the human soldiers and stuff would be like, let's fight Ratatouille, or you guys look like Shrek, and I was like, get rid of that stuff. Just have the pop culture references be in character, kind of like Deadpool. Let Deadpool be the guy making the pop culture references. Don't let anybody else do it.
You guys have to have a straight, like, to make comedy generally work, you got to have somebody who's the straight man, and then the other person can be silly. And I think in the same way, you're stating that, like, them making those references works for those characters
because they live in a sewer, and all they have is TV and YouTube.
Right.
So they constantly make pop culture references because their only connection to humanity is through cell phones and television and the movies.
Through the outside world, yeah.
Like, like they go to see Ferris Bueller's Day Off in the park, and they're like, see, if you go to high school, you can just go hijack a parade whenever you want. Like, they have a mediated, warped view of humanity because they just see it through black boxes. But then when you have the human soldier characters doing the same thing, it was like, that's dumb. Like, rein that in. That was like the only gripe I had with the whole movie was that little bit, but it's not enough to
it's not enough to really hurt
to ruin anything.
Okay, so this film's directed by Jeff Rowe, which I stated earlier. Rowe is an animation director whose best work is known for this movie is Mitchell's versus the Machine. I've never seen this. It's on Netflix. I've heard actually pretty good things for a kids movie on Netflix. So maybe you should watch it. Maybe I'll watch it after this. Who knows? As well as he was a writer for another cartoon show called Gravity Falls. I've seen a couple episodes. It seems kind of like an interesting, kind of fun cartoon. Rose stated that he wanted to make changes to the origin that were grounded in logic versus established lore. They also sprinkled in many characters from the cartoon and toy line because he was a fan growing up. He loved that stuff. So, like I said earlier, there is a delineage between like the comic book stuff and then the TV show. And you can see this movie's way more influenced by the TV show than the comics. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying, like, you can kind of tell where this one is really heavy on the old 87 cartoon because these guys are such big fans of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of which, what a great photo of him. I mean, he looks...
This one?
I've never seen him before, but he looks like the guy that that's the director.
That guy's the director.
Just this grubby, like, looks like like a 40-year-old t-shirt, that is like, it used to be white, now it's just like stained brown.
It's like
it's perfect.
Those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It's perfect.
Love that. So let's talk about the turtles, the voices of these turtles, real quick. It should be noted, this is sort of the first time. I think it is the first time. I don't know why I'm saying it's sort of the first time. I think it's the first time
that they're children
voiced by actual teenagers. Because every other movie, they're always adults. Like, it's always like it's teenage mutant ninja turtles. Like, no one really talks really in depth with the teenage part. So first, I got Micah Abbey plays Donatello. That kid's 16. I don't know when they probably recorded this, he might have been 15 or 14. I don't know. There's not very many credits to
He was the only one that I thought there was only one kid, and that it was
he's got the high-pitched voice, and I
thought the joke was going to be, I thought maybe by the end of the movie his voice would change, like it would deepen. But I would, if you would have asked me, it'd have been like they cast a kid that's Donnie, right?
Yeah.
Like, they cast a kid for Donnie, and then everybody else was an adult. But nope, I'm wrong.
They're all kids. Well, I should say, slightly stretching. They're teenagers, and I'll
they're kids,
but
so
they're okay. So anyway, Micah Abbey plays Donatello. One thing I loved about the movie that we just brief talk about, I liked that they kind of skewed and changed Donatello's, because Donatello's always been he's always been the guy who's good at computers and tech and machines and stuff. He's always that guy. And they still keep it true with that, but they kind of skew it just a little bit because they're like, well, today's culture on nerds has changed drastically since the 80s. So, like, let's do that with our characters. So, like, he's a huge fan of anime. He's a huge fan of Clash on Titans, which they use as a plot point in the movie.
Yeah.
But, like, they don't make him it's like, bear with me. When you and I were in high school, like, we were nerds. Like, we were into this crap. but socially, I don't think we would like. How do you?
We
like,
had girlfriends.
We had girlfriends. We had girlfriends in high school, so it's like we were nerds, but like I'm just saying the way that I think people looked at nerds in the 80s was more of
Was
like it was
geeks.
also social
Like
plus what they
geeks.
were interested in. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like social what you're and also what you're interested in.
Yeah.
But I think that culture has changed so much more now where it's like it's more acceptable to be into superheroes and comic books and have podcasts with, we argue about movies.
Where you break
and
out
that's
your
not
TMNT
seem to be
dolls.
and
My
yeah, and that's
collection.
look at my collection.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is a little more acceptable, like abroad. Like everybody's like, oh yeah, that's cool, that's fine, whatever. But it's more of
Yeah.
like a social thing. So I do like that socially, he's actually one of the guys. Like he's not like, yeah, he's into this nerdy stuff, but he's like cool with the other guys. Next we got Shamon Brown Jr.
Mikey
Hope I'm
was the
pronouncing-
biggest change. Mikey
has a
Mikey
deeper
didn't come
voice.
in like, whoa, dude, hey, hey guys, like, I just like slipped on a banana peel because like just
They kept him the
being
same
dumb.
size. Like he's the smaller of them all,
Yeah,
but
they
like
didn't make him.
He has
They
a
didn't
deeper
make him
voice.
the constant comic relief where he's kind of the surfer dude who's
still
dumb. The lovable
he's-
dumb guy.
He's not the dumb guy. He's still the one who's like I think they like make reference to like him wanting to do acting, I think, or something like that. Like, wasn't that something? Maybe I'm getting mixed up, but he like they make a little bit more reference that he's just like he wants to be a little more of a clown, but like I don't know. They skew it in a way. Again, they're skewing kind of the origins of these characters to fit more like real teenagers a little bit, and he's just more of like good, fun, chill dude. But yeah, he's not like you're saying, he's not the comedic relief character necessarily.
He's not the lovable dumbass, which is what he's always been, the lovable dumbass.
Yeah.
Like he only cares
He's
about
still lovable.
like
I just don't think
skateboarding and pizza, bro. Like in did you ever see Batman versus TMNT?
I never saw that one.
I've heard watch it with your kids. It's
I've
a
heard
good
it's
one.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a really good one. I mean, they even do stuff like they bring in the ooze.
I think Shredder beats up Batman, doesn't he?
It's like Shredder and Ra's al Ghul team up, and
oh, that sounds awesome. I gotta see this.
And they bring in the ooze element and the entire Batman's rogues gallery. They all get oozed up, so everybody turns into like Freeze turns into a polar bear and Joker turns into a snake. It's really great. But
awesome.
in that, it's the typical Mikey where he's like, I'm in the Batmobile. Can I hit all the buttons? And Batman's like, shut up, stop it, don't touch anything.
Yeah, he's
he's
not
a lovable
taken as
idiot.
seriously as the other guys. But I've always liked his characterization in other versions. Never bothered me. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a very big change.
I'm simply pointing out that there's a drastic change. Yeah,
right. Next, I think I should have ordered these differently, but we got Nicholas Cantu plays Leonardo. He's 20, but I can imagine when they recorded it, he might have been 19, technically still a teenager, or he might have been 18. So like, I'm giving the movie a little like, okay, but like this guy also he's probably
I could tell.
like
I could tell a 20-year-old voice. Okay,
right.
I was calling bullshit the whole fucking time. Okay, you can't get anything past me.
I knew
this whole movie
but
sucks
now. He also has a ton of voice acting credits. Out of all these guys, he probably has the most credits to his name. He was also in the recent Walking Dead spinoff, Beyond Worlds or something like that. I've never seen it. And he was one of Steven Spielberg's fellow scouts in The Fabelmans. If you haven't seen that movie, I fucking love that movie. But yeah, he's placed one of the other Boy Scouts in that movie where it's Steven Spielberg. He helps him with the movies that he's making. He's one of the other kids in that. So that was pretty cool. And then the last one, we've got Raphael, played by Brady Noon. Oh, back to Leonardo. Forgot to mention, because we were talking about the turtles. I liked how, much like Donatello, they do kind of a little bit of reversal with Leonardo. He's still the leader. They still really keep that in mind. But the big thing that they changed socially is that in cartoons and most things that we watch, the leader was looked upon as like, oh yeah, he's the leader, he's the cool dude, like he's a cool guy. Because I think most people
this was like you're
like he wanted to be a leader. They wanted to make him the square, and they really like pointed that. So even at the end of the movie, when they spoilers, they go to high school, he's the one who's dressed up as the nerd. Donatello is not dressed up as a dork, or he's not clean cut dressed. He's just just like a normal teenager who's chill. Leonardo's the one who's a little more clean cut because he's got to be the responsible one.
He does it though because of April. Like everything he does, like you
Right.
know, they're like essentially, we're all assuming that you're gonna go rat us out to Splinter, and he's like,
Don't say that.
No.
Don't use that term with me.
He's like, yeah, right, yeah.
Don't use that.
Yeah,
don't use that term in this house.
Yeah. He was like, I'm sorry, Dad, but yeah, I just said it. Because that's what you
How
said.
dare you?
I forgot about the joke. But yeah, he does it specifically for April. That's what kind of leads him, you know, classic hero's tale stuff that we need, which is a guy rising above his position because he's inspired to do so out of romantic notions, to the point where, did you watch the post-credits scene? Not mid credits, right? Where he in the end he asks out April. So that was the romance, and then she keeps trying to friend zone him, and it's like but they set up a sequel where I mean
they've already greenlit a sequel. We're getting a sequel, so
yeah. They at the end of this, spoiler alert, at the end of this, the evil chick was like, you know, we need to go get Shredder. We need to bring Shredder in. So the sequel will have Shredder, but this as an origin story was, as I said in my intro, was like comprehensive, and
they took a lot of time thinking through
most yes, it was like, what would actually happen, you know,
right?
How would it actually be if some turtles grew into humanoids?
Let me finish up the slides real quick,
yeah,
and then we'll talk more into this. So we got Brady Noon plays Raphael. He's 18. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but I know him best not personally, but I know him the best from the Mighty Ducks. He was in Mighty Ducks Game Changer. That was the Disney Plus show. That's sort of a continuation. It's a continuation of the Mighty Ducks movies. Again, we're going to talk about that order at some point in time. Again, it goes Mighty Ducks 1, 2, 3. There you go. That's the ranked episode. You're welcome. Good night. We'll toast to Emilio Estevez. It's gonna
be a thing in the future. Franchises that rank themselves. They just go in descending order.
We should do a night where we're gonna rank a bunch of franchises, and we're gonna talk about really simple.
All the ones that
I also
want to themselves.
I want to note in this slide, I made it because there are 4 different animated shows. So I made each of the different turtles based off the colors of their characters from the different shows, the different iterations. So the first one you got is Rise of the Ninja Turtles with Donatello. That's the most recent one. You have the OG 87 one with Michelangelo.
Yep.
Then you've got the 2000 and I want to say it's 2003 or it's 2006. I always get that mixed up, but it's my favorite one. They really did a lot more stuff from the comics and pulled that, like the first season's basically the first run of the comics. But that's Leonardo with that one. And then the last one, we've got the 2012 version, which is a lot more friendly, lighter. It's a CG one. It's the only CG one, I think, out of the bunch. That one's also really good, as by Raphael. So I just wanted to add little notes in here of things so you can be like, oh, okay, that's cool.
It's cute.
Moving on.
It's adorable.
That's cute. Let's move on. We got our allies in this movie. Of course, we got Jackie Chan as Splinter. I don't have anything else to say. It feels like a no-brainer. The man is 69 years old, which blew my mind because I'm like, man, I haven't seen him in a movie in a while. He's done a lot of voice acting lately.
Splinter. It's so cool.
But Jackie Chan is Splinter. Like, that makes so much sense. I don't know. And then you got Ayo Edebiri plays April O'Neil. She has a role in The Bear, which I've not seen. It's on Hulu. It's like a show about a chef.
Yeah, it's a good show.
I've heard it's good. I haven't seen it. She has a role in that. She's also on a show called Abbott Elementary. I haven't seen it. My wife's a teacher. She'll probably enjoy it. I haven't seen that one. And of course, I just want to mention this isn't the first time they've race swapped with April. Like the first time they did it was with the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. On a whole other topic, I'm not going to bring up. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it in some other time.
Okay. I only have one thing to say on it, but I guess I'll save it.
Okay. Demonetize the channel.
Yep.
Giancarlo Esposito plays Baxter Stockman. You know him from Breaking Bad, Mandalorian, but he has a huge list of credits, which today I learned that he was in Miami Vice, which I've never seen, but apparently there's a lot of famous people in Miami Vice, the 80s show. I should probably go back and try to watch that. And we got Ice Cube plays Superfly. And I should note that these two characters in the cartoon have always been the same person, because Stockman in the cartoon was made into a parody of The Fly, like the 50s and the 80s movie with Jeff Goldblum. That he was supposed to be a sort of a parody homage to that. So he turns into a fly. But this film changes from the cartoon origins, which makes sense logically, because only the animals become mutants instead of humans becoming animal-like mutants. Does that make sense? So like they're only, because the turtles were turtles, then they turned into humanoid turtles. And so they're like, okay, but that's got to be across the board with all the other animals. It can't just be humans turning into the animal thing. So they from difference from what your Batman meets the turtles or whatever it's called. The difference there is like they kind of made a logical sense between that. So that kind of made a lot of sense. Baxter in the comics, he's more of a robotics guy. He makes these things called Mausers, and they attack the turtles. So they really changed Baxter from the comics from the cartoon. And then we got Maya Rudolph, and you mentioned her, and you're like, yeah, that weird lady. Her character's name is Cynthia Outram. So the character's name and design may be a not so subtle hint for her true intentions, that being that she's Krang from Dimension X.
Really?
And the Outram, so the Outram are aliens that are like these squid, like you see the picture, these squid brain looking things. They are like inside these robots. In the comics, they're like inside these robots, and they kind of like walk amongst the humans and stuff. There's a whole other thing I could talk about them. I could geek out to that. But in the cartoon, they had this character named Krang, who was sort of like the boss, the head boss. But if you look at her design, that character's design is very similar to the one that I've posted, of Krang and his Krang suit thing that he has on him.
Almost like the specs she had were
exactly
look like that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, actually. And then as well as like the colors that they use, the bright pinks, all of that stuff. So it's like, who is this character? I think it's Krang. I think we're going to find out in the next movie that character was actually Krang. But as far as the Outram goes, Krang was not an Outram to begin with, but like over the course of time, they retconned that. I know you don't really care. I'm just geeking out. Let's move on. Finally, our final slide tonight. We're going to go through the mutants. We have many mutants. So last but not least, we have the mutants that make up the mayhem in this film. Seth Rogen brings his signature laugh to Bebop, and his sidekick life mate, Rocksteady, is played by John Cena, which I think is his third movie this year that we've talked about this year, because I think he was in Fast X, then he was in Barbie, and now he's in this movie. These characters, of course, have traditionally both of them have been lackeys to Shredder traditionally. We've got Paul Rudd plays Mondo Gecko. You know,
do you know why?
No Baskin Robin.
Get the fuck out of here. Do you know why it said in the end? It said introducing Paul Rudd.
I don't know.
The only logical thing
that's got to be a
never
joke.
Done an animated movie before. I mean, has Paul Rudd
as far as
done animated movies?
I know,
they only do introducing if you are literally new to acting.
Right.
So that was weird.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe this is his first time doing an animated voice, because I don't know if he's done animated.
But even to say introducing, animated or not,
everybody knows who Paul Rudd is.
Yeah. So it, like, you know, I don't think they put introducing in there just because you're in a different genre you've never done. So it's weird. The only thing I can think of, and this is just my headcanon in this scenario, is that because when they make when they do the credits and they figure out who's going to be who, what happens is the agents, they will negotiate with the studio and whoever's producing the movie, who's going to be on the call sheet where everyone's going to be. If you're the lead, you're going to be number one. That's a given. If you're like the next big character in the movie, you're going to be number two. Sometimes your star power is so big, even if you're not the main character, you still hit number one for some weird reason. My favorite is that the aging classic person, like Jackie Chan, it'll say with Jackie Chan, and then maybe it'll say
they will negotiate for that.
Giancarlo Esposito, like that's
right. They'll negotiate. And they'll say the ones at the end. That's even more special, because
that's even more special because that's like honoring your elders. almost,
Right.
and
You get to be at the end. Famously, like another example is like famously, like I'm going off topic. I don't care. Famously, the
on a
89
podcast.
Batman,
How dare you?
how
dare
you
you keep talking about something
famously,
interesting?
famously, in the 89 Batman movie, Jack Nicholson actually got top billing over Michael Keaton, even though the movie's called Batman, not Joker.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, which is
even though
pretty
the movie,
wild.
but if you watch that movie, you're like, the Joker is kind of the main. It's whatever. It's fine. Going back to the list. Okay, we got Paul Rudd plays Mondo Gecko. We've got Rose Prine. Is it Rose Prin or Rose Prine? I always screw
Rose
that
Byrne.
one up. Byrne? I'm way off. Way
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Rose Byrne plays Leatherhead. Rose Byrne was Rogen's co-star in Neighbors movies, if you kind of recall.
Well,
Also,
they
do
they
like
just they just did one together. They just did an Apple TV show called Platonic.
But
I
they've
think.
been working together for a while.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
probably there's like, hey, Rose, come on in. Let's do this show. And then of course we had her in the last Insidious movie that we had ranked earlier. We have Hannibal's Burrs. It's probably one of my favorite comedians.
Buress.
Plays Genghis Frog. Actually, that character is supposed to be part of an anti version of the Turtles called the Punk Frogs, and all those frogs are named after
No, that's Battletoads.
No.
No.
I'm not yes.
Talk about Battletoads.
Sure.
You know anything about Super Nintendo? It's Battletoads. But yeah, no.
Yes.
But
do you guys still have let's call GameStop and ask if they have Battletoads.
Yeah, right. Dude, I recently introduced my nephew to Battletoads, and we played for like 4 hours straight. He couldn't get enough of it. Like to the point where I was like, "You want to play some TMNT?" He's like, "No, that's stupid crap. I want to play Battletoads." Anyway, but within TMNT canon, there are these
there's these four frogs called the Punk Frogs, and I think Shredder creates them or something. And they're supposed to be like, every supervillain does this, where they're like, we got to make evil versions of the
middle-aged, overgrown Taekwondo frogs. Middle-aged,
right?
Overgrown Taekwondo frogs.
So they just said Punk Frogs, but all of their names, all of those characters' names were named after conquerors, whereas the Turtles are Renaissance artists. So they did a little switcheroo there. So he's Genghis Frog. I think another one's named after Napoleon. One's Attila. I don't know. There's a fourth one. I don't remember.
That's great.
And then we've got Post Malone plays Ray Fillet. And then we've got Natasha Demetros plays Wignut. And the only thing I know her from is What We Do in the Shadows, because I've never recognized her before. These characters either first appeared in the 87 cartoon or in the 80-something comic that was not based off the comic I was mentioning earlier, but like the tie-in with the show comic. So, and again, it was just to sell toys. And these were all, they had toys of all these characters. I think when I looked this up, like that image between John Cena and Natasha is like a bunch of these characters went on some kind of super monster team, mutant team or something in the Turtles universe, where they kind of like made them good guys or something. I don't know. So there you have it. That's a bunch of stuff. The other thing I did not mention was that the human that comes to the rescue of Splinter, I think he has some like line or something. He says something. That's actually Peter Laird. That's actually one of the creators of Ninja Turtles. They brought him to do a voice for one of the characters. So it's another fun little tie-in. There's tons of little stuff. There's so many more Easter eggs I probably never mentioned, but it's
it's like the Mario movie.
It's like the Mario movie. You're not going to get all of it.
Tons of stuff in there. Okay, yeah. There's. Oh, that was the toast.
I was supposed to have a bumper in between, so then we can just cut out of it. But oops. You didn't see that.
Oh no! Big surprise that it's probably going to be Seth Rogen, because he seems to have spearheaded this whole thing.
Oh no!
Yeah. Anyway, so if I go, let me see. There we go. So first off, I want to point out that again, who knows if it's like just a common thing in storytelling, because family is a big thing in everybody's lives, because we you can usually assume most people come from a family, but this is another family story. 2023 has been just chock full of the theme being family. But otherwise, do you have an initial thought where to place this.
I have a top and I have a bottom.
Okay, all I wrote was I'm feeling a top 10 here.
Oh. Now, actually, you said that. I'm like, oh shit, I know where the top could be now. I originally was thinking this, and then I'm like, no, maybe it's higher than that original initial thought.
I just
People think
this
I'm crazy.
movie was complete.
Here's
I'm
my
looking at it
bottom.
now. I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, oh god, a top 10 pushes out Sound of Freedom, which is kind of funny. But at the same time, this was just like
It was a better movie.
Very complete movie that really just kind of had me giddy throughout. You know,
initially I was gonna say my bottom was because I knew you were gonna say this. Like the initial bottom was gonna be Spider-Man because I think it was better. Like going into this, I told you I was like, hey, we should still review this. This movie's better than Spider-Man. Like I thought this was a better told movie, and I think the comparisons are warranted. I think people are gonna say like, oh, it's like they did Spider-Man, and I just want to also point out they didn't do so. Spider-Man's art style is specifically based off of comic book art and how it's printed onto printed onto paper. It's like that's why you see the little weird dots. Those are print marks. The artwork that they did for Turtles, they even stated that they based it off of kids drawing teenagers doodling doodles.
That was my assumption. Which two things. My assumption was they base this off of because I didn't see the trailer. I don't watch trailers, so I'm watching it and I'm like, this looks like they made a point of it being just like in Superbad, right? Seth Rogen's other masterpiece, where his character can't stop drawing dicks, right? And I know it's Jonah Hill, but it's based off Seth Rogen.
Yeah. No. You're right.
So it's like that art style of just like hand drawn doodling in class, and then that suspicion was confirmed when they have a short little sequence where the turtles are planning something out. They're like, we're going to save the world so that everybody likes us now, because the whole story in a nutshell is Splinter's like, you can't ever leave the sewer because everybody would just kill you. And the running joke is they'll steal you and they'll milk your blood. they will milk you. They're like, Dad, we don't have nipples. And he's like, it doesn't matter. They'll find a way to milk you. Which like pays off big by the end, which is great. But the whole idea being that you can't leave. So they come up with a scheme to win the hearts and minds of everybody, and that sequence is completely hand drawn, as if like a fifth grader drew it. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, done. Like, yes, their whole thing was that this is hand drawn, including the first explosion we see is all the smoke is just like pencil spirals. Right. So I thought that was really great.
If you look,
but at the same time,
closer,
I'm looking at
all the small details are like that.
Yeah, it's great. But at the same time, I'm looking at it, and I kept getting flashbacks of like Leica stop motion, as if it was like hand drawn and then photographed frame by frame, like a stop motion Leica. Like have you seen Coraline or Box Trolls?
I've seen. I saw Kubo and the Two Strings. I really like that.
Yeah. Like those movies, like a lot of this felt like frame by frame stop motion type of stuff that was hand drawn. So like that's where it differentiated itself from Spider-Man. It's anybody saying that they're trying to be Spider-Man.
I don't think
they're wrong.
Yeah,
it's not trying to be Spider-Man. It's just a fresh.
I think really
approach.
What it's not that it's trying to be Spider-Man. It's trying not to be Pixar, because I think the distinction in animation currently as the state of animation. Let me put on my old man hat or whatever. I don't know, but the state of animation currently, it's like if you're doing 3D or you're doing anything CGI, it either looks like some kind of knockoff version of a Pixar or an Illumination. It doesn't look like even Illumination at times, not that it looks exactly like it, but it kind of does, looks somewhat similar to that. So that's where I'm like,
well, Seth Rogen already did.
It's not trying to do that. It's trying to do something different. It's trying
Remember
to.
Remember, he did Sausage Party. He did Pixar.
And Sausage Party. Yeah. Sausage Party even looks like a Pixar movie. So
that was the point.
Right.
The point of Sausage Party was to be an adult Pixar movie, which I remember liking that movie. The only negative I had about that movie was how they were. I don't like when movies make a point of swearing. I'm fine with swearing in movies, but when they make a point of it, where it's like, how many times can we shoehorn in the F word to be like, this is an adult Pixar movie, where they kept saying the F word in a way that I was like, you're saying it too much, and you're saying it too on the nosely that you're annoying me now, as opposed to like a natural way that just people say it as things are happening. You know, it was like it was as if the director came in their ear and was like, yeah, just keep saying it over and over. We want you to say it more and emphasize it. It's like this is too much. But anyway, getting away from Sausage Party. So that was where the animation style was fresh, and anybody just saying they're trying to be Spider-Man, they don't really.
And they had, and
it,
like we said, they as any good filmmaker will do, they think of the theme, they think of the things that they're trying to hit, and you think about that in every aspect of your film.
And this is teenage.
In the teenage, they thought of teenagers, so that's the animation style. So I love that. That was great. So anyway, back to my
initial
ranking. So initial, when I was thinking in my head, I was like, it's above Spider-Man because you don't like Spider-Man.
It's a good baseline. It's a good baseline.
It's a good baseline. I was like Spider-Man, but it's like, because you can compare those two. I was like, okay.
Real quick before you move on, though, which one?
No.
Spider-Man 1, Inner Spider-Verse.
I think it's
for this movie. That's a tough call. That's a real hard one.
I think they're very two different types of movies. I just think the writing in this one and where everything's framed out is so well done that it's just
that would be tough.
Everything clicks. Everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2. I have one nitpick.
This blows Spider-Man 2 away.
I have one nitpick on this movie, but it's not major. It's more or less like, why do we need all these mutant characters? But I feel like it just gives a little bit more emphasis. It gives more emphasis on family and that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, I get that, because at one end it feels like, oh, this is just a cash cow to just bring all these famous people's and their voices and then references to the cartoon and have these other action figures that you can sell. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but it does like emphasize the whole family element of this. So anyway, my list, where I was originally in my head when we started talking about it, was like Spider-Man, and then I was like, I think it's better than Sound of Freedom. And then I thought about it more, and I'm like, I think it's better than Creed 3. And then I thought about it more, and I'm like, it's better than Air, and I think it's better than Tetris. And then when you get it to John Wick, Mission Impossible, Guardians territory, that's where I'm like,
that's
where
I start hitting.
That's where I'm like, the writing is so well done, the animation is so well done, the acting is so well done. Like, there's not a lot there wasn't anything, unless you're a Turtles fan that wants to nitpick certain turtle aspects, because there is one thing as a Turtles fan I could nitpick, but then the way that they handle it, I was like, oh no, that makes sense logically within the story that they are telling. And I'll tell you what it is real quick. Typically in the Turtles story or pantheon, like, Splinter teaches the Turtles ninja skills, because either him or his master was a member of the Foot Clan and was like a ninja. He was an expert martial artist, and so he trains this children to that, and it kind of ties in with the Shredder story. But with the way that this movie handles it, it's more about the character. Splinter is not that version that we saw in these other versions, which makes you question how they're going to handle Splinter in the next film. But in this version, he's just a rat who just so happened to find these turtles, and then he became their father, and he had to take care of these turtles, and he mutated with them. As a dad,
he only learned
out how to
ninjutsu because after they had been attacked in the street one time.
It's motivated. It's like there's a reason, and it connects with the story. It connects with his overbearing fatherness type thing. So it's like, that whole thing.
Like, we need to learn to defend ourselves because nobody is looking out for us, which is on theme. Like, I'm good with that change because it's on theme. And that scene of them first going out when he's like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? Let's go out into the middle of Times Square. Was like, that's a classic shot, right? Of somebody walking into Times Square and the camera spins around them. You've seen it in like a million different TV shows and movies. But I had a big old smile on my face, like just seeing it's Splinter holding 4 little turtle babies like this, around his chest, and they're like, wow. And I was just so overjoyed at that moment. And then people are like, what's that giant rat guy? Kill him! And so based on that, he's like, we need to learn to defend ourselves, as opposed to the original live action film where he's like, my master in Japan was master, ninjutsu master. And you see, like, one of the best scenes of the movie is him. You see, like, Mr. Bruce Lee guy who's like training, and then you see Splinter in his cage, and he's mimicking the moves, and it's so fucking cool. But it's like so awesome. But then in this movie, they don't. It's the whole approach with this movie was let's all sit in a circle and let's wipe our minds. We're all big fans of TMNT, but let's wipe our minds of all knowledge and let's just meditate on the idea of some ooze falls down a drain and finds some turtles, and then those turtles and then a rat finds them, and they all start to they become these humanoid creatures. What would happen? Realistically, what would happen? And that's what they emphasize. That's why this movie, I said in my intro, I was like, this is the best what's the term? The best origin story.
Adaptation?
The best origin story overall, because it was most other movies are just like, yeah. Some ooze hit some turtles and then they learned to be ninjas, and like now we're off and running, and whenever people would run into them, they freak out at first, but then they quickly are like, okay, they accept it right away. Whereas with this, it was like nobody accepts it. They just continue to be like, this is weird throughout, and all these mutants are weird throughout. Right. And it was like a keen understanding of what would happen, and then that informs the entire plot. The whole idea is the turtles are like Little Mermaid, where they're like, I want to be where the people are. Like, and one of the stupidest but funniest moments was early on. We see them; they have to go out and they have to steal groceries. That's literally the first thing we see them do, and they're sneaking home in the shadows and avoiding all these humans. And one of the humans, like just some random teenager, he goes, I don't know if you heard this, but he goes, God, I love being free to like go out and do whatever I want.
Yeah, I did remember that. Yeah,
like just like that was
very
the whole theme.
Sort of like on the nose to the situation, but
on the nose because it was funny and it was effective. But then
I liked
so then what that leads to is once they meet, they get the idea of like, oh, there's this huge criminal we keep hearing about named Superfly. So hey, and they meet April and all that. April has her freak out. And then, but she's like, I'm cool with you guys because you helped me. So if you could help everybody, then I think everybody would like you. And they're like, what a great idea. We'll save the world and then everybody will love us. They won't reject us. We can live amongst the humans, So what that leads to is, oh, there's this bad guy, Superfly. We don't know anything about him, but April has like the 411 on him. But then when they go meet him, they think they're just going to beat up a human. Well, it turns out that he's this huge mutant and he's got a mutant army. So then they're like, oh, and April's like, okay, go ahead, kick his ass. And they're like, what? No, he's huge. And then so then Superfly sees them and he's like, yeah, y'all want to fight. And then they quickly realize, oh, you're mutants too. So they what do? They go bowling. Like they get pizza and they go bowling and they all hang out. And it's like, yes, that's exactly what it's absurd, but that's exactly what would happen. Like, that's why this movie puts a smile on my face.
Right.
But then they're like, we see this like light side, dark side thing where the turtles are like, no, we've actually had a run-in with a couple humans, and like, yeah, they're afraid of us, but they could also learn to appreciate us. Whereas the fly, and as a fly would, if flies are disgusting, if you saw a humanoid fly, you'd want to kill it right away.
It's the classic villain versus hero analogy that most people say.
Yes.
So like most writers will say that what's the difference between the hero and the villain? They usually want the same thing, but there's a key difference.
006 and 007.
The hero, well, the key difference is the hero is like, I don't want what happened to me to ever happen to anybody else. That's their internal thinking. That's what makes them a hero. But the villain is not that I want this to happen to anybody else, but I want this to happen to everybody else so they feel what I felt.
Feel my pain.
Feel my pain. So they do the opposite. They don't prevent the bad thing from happening. They do the bad thing to everybody else so they know what it feels like.
Were you having flashbacks of X-Men, where it's that verbatim, where the whole plan, Magneto's plan in the first X-Men movie is I have this machine that's gonna turn everybody into a mutant, right? So everybody will know what it feels like to be an outlier and an outsider. And so, but the difference here was that the idea was that this machine would, Superfly's machine would turn all of the animals, all the bugs, every creature, every non-human entity would be turned into a mutant. And then they would just enslave the humans or something, essentially. And like April hears all this, she's like, "That's really bad for me, at least." And then what that led to was this really interesting idea of the mutants on the fly, or the turtles on the fly, having to decide, what team are we on? Are we on the side of this like really charismatic giant fly who has all these like they right away they're like, "Oh, we're cousins, we're family members, like we should all be working together." Or are we on the side of this one human who likes us? You know, like one human approves of us, April. And April's like, "Yeah, guys, like, can you do something about this?" And they're like, "How? What could we possibly do?" Again, we've only been in one fight, and we barely won that fight.
They've been in multiple fights at that point.
I mean, well, at that point, it was
no. They've been in multiple. They made a montage.
They had a montage. Yeah.
They had a montage. So they had done multiple fights.
Yeah. They had a really awesome montage, but they hadn't. The whole point of that montage was to show that they're really capable. But then the next thing is they never fought themselves. They never fought their mutant friends.
Right.
So yeah. So then they're torn between like, okay, if we say a word against this scheme, Superfly is just going to kill us, and that's exactly what happens. They're
teenagers. They're not adults. These guys
so
are
it's like
kind of more adults.
Like, and that's the type of stuff where I was like, this is expertly written. This is great. Because you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, of course they should do the right thing, but if they do the right thing, they're just going to get fucking killed right now, like right here and right now. So I like whatever changes they needed to make to the turtle lore, I don't care, because within this tale, the story is so good.
Those versions,
that it's
worth
it.
As anything, you can always say, well, those versions still. Most of the time, people complain about a new thing, like Star Wars, right? There's a lot of people who don't like the new ones. There's people who don't like the prequels. But at the end of the day, you can say, well, the originals are still there, and you can still like those. Like those are still there. They still exist. I like these first two movies a lot. Okay, these two movies, they're great.
They're great.
They're my favorite turtle movies. I still like those. I mean, I think that like these are two different movies. Like the original Turtles, I still think it's the definitive like. This is Ninja Turtles.
Like you said, emphasis on ninja. It's emphasis on ninja, not on teen. This was emphasis on teenager.
On Teenage Mutant.
And mutant.
Teenage Mutant.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. You're right. Like and I would say most, if not all, of the other adaptations have always been about the Ninja Turtles. I mean, the Michael Bay produced movies are Ninja Turtles. There's no Teenage Mutant in the title.
They don't behave like teenagers. They maybe behave kind of like, let's get pizza and skateboard. But generally speaking, they're more they act like adults for most of it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So this was they want to go to high school. And then that was the whole thing with April O'Neil in this, was that April isn't an established journalist. She's just a high school student who had this really embarrassing thing to her that she's trying to overcome. So just like them, she's also trying to find acceptance. Like literally everybody in this fucking story is on theme and has an arc. And so like that's why there's a smile on my face the whole time. And then just real quick, as far as that stuff goes, because like, you know, people ask me, oh, like, what do you think of the race swap? And I go, I don't care. Like I don't give a damn. I care if the movie's good. The movie's good. Yeah. So I care even less. When I first see that, what that triggers in my brain is having been behind the scenes when casting occurs, and just something that I'm on record saying multiple times I don't appreciate when it's like we're not casting white people here. And I go, yeah, but isn't that just as racist as saying we're not going to cast black or brown people? That concept aside,
somebody like Grey's Anatomy, where they just do an open casting. They don't have in mind over their head versus guy, girl, like none of that's there.
Yeah.
Like, even my new movie that I'm putting out, like I had a character that was a guy, but then when I started doing casting, I found somebody who was a girl who was like, oh, that person would be really great for
And
this
I've done
role,
the
even though
same
it's a
thing
guy.
where you're just like, this
It didn't
person's
change
so
the
good.
story.
This actor actress is so good that they need to
Yeah.
like they could play this or that, and that would be a really fresh take, like an unexpected take on that. But so that's like whenever race swap stuff is presented, that's my stipulation is like, well, if that's the case, I would hope that they're the best person for the job and they weren't hired because some asshole wanted to like virtue signal or whatever. But that concept, take that concept, put it aside, because it doesn't matter for a movie like this where April isn't an established professional. She's
not even
just
that.
trying to
I think
find her way.
I
like,
went
so
back.
I don't care. I don't care what she
Right.
looks like or whatever. It's kind of, it's like, if
It
anything,
works more for this movie. For
yeah,
anything else.
who cares about
works
who
really
gives
well
a
with this movie.
fuck about her race? She's bigger. She's like the only like fatter April we have, which makes her even more of an awkward teen trying to overcome being like this, like an embarrassed wreck. The whole thing was that she did the morning announcements and she puked, which I can
so over the top.
like I can understand like how, you know,
You
how
puked all the time.
I puked all the time. So I can
And
understand,
the bloody
like,
noses too.
yeah, and I so I can get that. So her trying to overcome that is great. So it made her more of an, like, I can see their motivation was that it made her more of an awkward teen. The only thing, this is what I was hearkening back to what I said before. The only problem I have is that there's this weird trend against hot redheads. For some reason,
that's what I was going to bring up.
Redheads continue to be removed from our pop culture. So right now I'm starting this Twitter trend, hashtag stop hot redhead genocide. We all need to stand up and do something about this blatant removal of sexy hot redheads from pop culture. It's not right, McCurdy. I don't care.
Right,
I don't care
Chucky,
what grandstanding anyone wants
Chucky,
to do. There is a real present dangerous threat to sexy hot fucking redheads, and I won't stand for it anymore. It's bullshit.
Calm down. But I was going to tell you this. I had a friend who posted this thing on Facebook.
Why are you not? No, I want you to take to the streets with me right now so we can fight back against this genocide against sexy hot redheads.
I was going to tell you this.
It's tragic.
One of my friends, he posted this meme, and it was like right after I went and saw the movie, and I was thinking about, like, it was weird. I had the same thought you did because I thought it was weird, and it's more weird that it's like it's specifically redheads. It's
always fucking redheads.
It's specifically
leave redheads alone.
And it's not. And you're saying it's hot redheads. I'm saying it is male, female, because my friend sent me this meme, and it's all these different characters in movies, television, comics, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're all redheads. Whether they were in the comics, they were redheads. In the movie, they were redheads. The TV show, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they're all race swapped and they're all black. And it's like, but why is it specifically redheads? Why can't you switch? Like, I'm just saying, like, you know, okay, why can't it be someone who's blonde? Why can't it be a brunette? Like, why does it have to be
Ariel?
Like, I'm just saying,
like, Ariel was race swapped black, and I'm like, everybody, you know, it's like, what do you think of that?
I didn't care. I was like, fine.
Who gives a damn? Other than the fact that I'm robbed of another sexy redhead. Even if they're animated, they're still hot. Like, what's wrong with the world today? Get it? Like, just there's a very real genocide of redheads that's happening right in front of us, and nobody's speaking out. Nobody's speaking out. So all of you take to all your social medias, hashtag stop redhead genocide. Stop hot. I should put sexy in there. Stop sexy hot redhead genocide. The revolution begins today.
I'm McCurdy. This is Chucky Rance.
The revolution starts today. We're gonna correct this now, but for real though, it's always
I just thought it was a weird. It's a weird. You're right. It is just a very weird trend where it's like weird. It's gonna happen. There's a lot of characters that are being race swapped or gender swapped or whatever. And some of it, it's like some of it I'm kind of fine with because it's like it doesn't change the story. Like in this instance, as we were talking, it's like it doesn't really change anything. If anything,
It
they
makes
even
the
like,
character better. Not
but also there's a
I
more
said the
of an
fat
emphasis.
thing. The fat thing
Right.
makes the character better for this movie particularly.
True.
The race
True.
thing
But, like,
doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
It's that she's just kind of like an awkward teenager. That's what
Right.
matters, as
She's
opposed
a
to April
character.
O'Neil.
It's just like she looks
who-
like this. Who cares?
April O'Neil in every other iteration is like an established person. This is somebody trying to prove themselves, just like who?
Right.
Just like the turtles themselves. So it makes it
Exactly.
better. But we
Exactly.
need to
So
stop
that-
redhead
we were
genocide.
talking there. Wait, what else did we want to talk about? What else did you want to talk about? I don't know. I feel like we talked about a lot already.
I think that at
I-
this point, I mean,
Let's just start ranking it. Let's figure the rank.
I'm good to yeah. Those
Let's
my
talk
thoughts.
about the rank.
My
here's,
thoughts.
Here's where I
precisely,
think.
sir.
I think really. I think the conversation. I'm just gonna save time because I genuinely think this is better than Sound of Freedom. I genuinely think this is
Yeah.
better than Creed 3. I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah, yeah.
better than
It's more
Air.
complete.
You can make an argument. I
Fuck
think
Air.
Air is the problem with Air is like it's just a talking rooms genre film. I think it does I think it's still a great movie. That's why it's on
Sure.
the top of our 30-some movie list.
Yeah.
Tetris, I think it's a better movie than Tetris. I think Tetris has flaws. Like Tetris kind of lands too far into like, oh, let's just do what they did in Argo with our movie, even though again, none of that actually happened. So I'm like, okay,
but that's
like,
fine. I don't care if they lied. I don't care.
Okay.
But
now
what
let's
you're
talk
getting
about
at
like
is that
John Wick.
This movie's more complete. This movie just
More complete.
is
John Wick.
complete.
John Wick is all about spectacle. And so I don't really think it has a true theme or story other than like maybe this is the end.
It's
maybe.
the completion of a story that's 4 movies long,
Right.
but at the end of the
Mission
day, that story
Impossible.
is that plot and story is there to service action. It's
Mission Impossible,
fucking
like
good
we
action. That's
said.
why it's high. Mission
Impossible,
Impossible's
like we
better
said
because
before,
it's the same
it's a
concept.
better it's a spectacle movie that you go to
Yes.
see. Tom Cruise almost hurt himself, and he usually does.
Same
but
concept
it's
as
amazing.
John
But-
Wick, just done
and I
with a
think
better
the stories I think the stories there's a story there. It's about
or
trust.
it's
It's
more
about
attractive.
that kind of thing.
It's
It's
more
a little and
fun. It's more
and
attractive.
it's not
overall.
something we're gonna it's more creative in how its conflicts are escalated, not because it's just a bunch of people shooting guns at each other and it feels like a video game. So that's why it's
Yeah.
better. But I do think, like Charlie, you did say at that time, you were like, well, I feel like I got half a movie. And I'm like, I would say the analogy is you got half a really good, delicious pie. Like someone gave you, let's say pizza for this instance. You got the best pizza in New York, and it came to your door and you opened the lid and it was half the pizza, and someone said you're gonna have to wait until next summer to get the other half of that pizza. That's what Mission Impossible is.
It's a really good half, though. Really good.
Now we
half,
get to Guardians of the
but
Galaxy.
You don't know.
Really,
You don't know what the second half. Maybe the second half of that pizza has like anchovies or something, and you're like, "What the fuck is this shit?" You know,
Right.
that's what we don't
Right.
know yet. So we can't really
Right.
truly judge the whole pie yet.
right.
Go
So
on.
then we get to where I feel like the fairest assessment on our list is between these movies. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and this movie. And I can't say, and I don't think it's going above Guardians, but I'm sorry, I don't think it's going above Infinity Pool. I can't
Yeah,
give
it's
my
not,
bring
it's
myself
not going
to
to
be
breach those three.
one.
Those three
This
are
movie
so
is
fucking
like
good.
Yeah, TMNT is just it is too much of a commercial product that is geared towards for kids to sell toys. I mean, this is like at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's not necessarily there to sell a good message. The message that it is telling is just about acceptance, which I think is everything that we all deal with. But when you look at Infinity Pool, Beau Is Afraid and Oppenheimer, they all have like life lessons stories, but they're all like films. They're movies. They're like
They are
movies.
Those
are
you
films.
better be really fucking. You better be a masterpiece to break into that top 3.
Right. So I don't know where I would begin to argue up or down for Guardians of the Galaxy. I really don't, because I think Guardians, it's sort of judging this by apples and oranges in a little bit, because one's animated, one's live action, and one's the beginning of a thing, the one's the end of a thing.
But I would say,
but
my
where would you
my initial reaction there would be that like your thinking is primo, that it's above or below Guardians. I'm cool with, just because of how complete this movie is. With, like I said, it brings it on all points, where including something we haven't talked about. a cherry on top for me is how fun the soundtrack is. Like it's just New York hip hop. Like even like MOB comes in. Like anytime they're kicking ass, they're rocking like MOB and stuff. So that's like. And everything that we've said, everything I said in the opener, a fresh and apt style of animation, good humor, good fun, motivated bad guys with a sympathetic plot, so on and so forth. Like it brings that on all fronts. Where Guardians, I think, excels is the specifically, the fact that you could have a cybernetic, like it's also a mutant story, right? You have the mutants, but then you have you have Rocket Raccoon, right? To have a cybernetic raccoon bring you to tears and absolutely fall in love with that character is extremely admirable. I don't know if there's anything in Guardians 3 that would that would like necessarily bring it below this movie.
That makes sense.
Where they're almost on an even keel, but like this movie isn't a tearjerker so much as it's a lot of fun.
Because
right?
on one level, I would have probably ranked this. There's one part of my brain that would have said I would have ranked this in the realm of Flash and Dungeons, somewhere in that realm, because of like this is that kind of movie. It's a popcorn movie. This is like but this is a solidly written popcorn movie that has a really hones its theme, and you're really having a good time as you're watching. But as you stated, there's no moment in this movie that is a tearjerker. Not that I think that's you need to have that, but like because like Beau Is Afraid and Infinity Pool, those movies didn't have tearjerker moments. Like Flash did, Sound of Freedom. God damn it, I'm not watching that movie again. You know, those movies had. Well,
it's like Nan said. Nan's was like, I wouldn't rewatch Sound of Freedom. I was like, dude, Sound of Freedom, you can't bring rewatchability in on something like Sound of Freedom. That's nobody in their right mind is like, hey guys, it's Friday night, let's pop in Sound of Freedom. That's as absurd as like, hey guys, Saturday night, it's a party, let's put on Passion of the Christ. Hey guys, it's
Charlie, you'll love
Friday
this one.
afternoon. Let's put on Schindler's List. You're like, no.
Charlie, you'll love this.
Those aren't rewatchable movies. They're just really fucking effective movies. They
going off
topic
real quick. I just learned of this place. I was at work. I was talking to these people, and they were telling me about like this. They're like, yeah, there's this coffee shop, or I don't know if it's a food place, coffee shop, something like that. But when they get your order, instead of asking your name, they ask you a question. And one of the questions somebody asked was, what's your favorite? What was a movie you would take on a date? And somebody, to be funny, was like, Schindler's List.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a fun little thing. Anyway, you're saying you really think Guardians and I would probably agree with you. I think Guardians at least tops that in the feels in all corners. I think it tells a very coherent story, very well told themes, and it's also like it does a lot of the same things Turtles does. I think Turtles is more of a cash grab in many regards, whereas Guardians is like it's hard because it's like it's obvious. It's a very commercial thing. Teenage Mutant Turtles has always been made to like sell toys, essentially.
But it could have.
But it tells a really good story.
So is every other TMNT. You know, they all like, especially the. And I haven't seen them, so I can't really say. But I would assume that the Michael Bay ones are embarrassing.
Being objective,
those would be low.
If I'm being objective, this is the best Turtles movie. If I'm not being objective, I would still put the first one above this. But I think objectively, this is the best Turtles movie.
I would, me not having seen all the animated ones, I would have no problem putting this.
There's only one other animated
ones. Well, I guess there's
only one other,
and then you have tons of cartoons.
As far as films go, you're talking about the cartoons. Got it.
But like obviously I don't know, maybe there's a discussion on the first and second. Probably everybody would give the first live action movie props as being the best. But like the fact that this could contend with the first live action movie is major.
Right.
So where like John Wick is really high up because it's incredibly well executed action with like some story in there. It's completing a story. Mission Impossible above that because it's a similar concept, but it's like the fun version of that. right?
Right.
So it's appropriately, for me, it's like it's so well written and approached with love. That's the big, that, like I said, it's like it's clear that these people working on this movie gave a shit. They cared.
Yeah.
Like, Seth Rogen wasn't there to like make Sausage Party again. He was there because he's like, I not only do I love these characters, but let's give a fresh take on them. Again, emphasis on teenage. And that was omnipresent. Like you could feel that throughout. It was Little Mermaid of some, I wish I want to be part of
I want to be with the
their
people.
world. Yeah, I want to be where the people. What do they call them? Oh yeah, feet. Like that was you could feel that throughout.
Yeah.
And then when it made that turn where they meet up with the bad guy, instead of just like beating each other up, they fucking go bowling. I was just like, this is perfect. This is like so believable as to what would happen. And then when it goes into full action mode, they give the main bad guy. So essentially what happens is that the main bad guy, played by Ice Cube, like awesomely played by Ice Cube, all of his mutants began to turn on him because the turtles are like, they try to reason with everybody. They're like, hey guys, like we don't need to hate the humans. Maybe they could learn to love us. But what was so beautiful was that the way the movie opened was that Superfly was the first mutant. And so he was like him and Splinter. He even says at some point, he's like, hey, Splinter, you and I are the same. We're both the fathers of all these mutants. And Splinter's trying to help his sons to acclimate to a human world. Whereas Superfly's like, no, fuck humans. And that's specifically because of all these, when he was a baby, the fucking feds, not the feds, but TCRI, raided his house and killed his dad. And he had to like flee with everybody. And so when he tells the story about the first time that they were chased by a human, for Splinter, it was like, they were like, dude, get that rat guy. For Superfly, he's like, yeah, he was chasing us. So I turn around and I beat that motherfucker. And they're like, he basically tells them how he murdered this guy. And the turtles are just like, oh my God. I mean, it's no different from like if you'd meet somebody from like I don't know, like a dangerous part of the inner city where they're like, yeah, I had to kill people. I skinned people alive to stay alive. And you're like, wow, that's very different from how we grew up with Splinter, And what it reminded me of was recently I watched a documentary series on HBO called The Anarchists. Have you heard of this? So it's about a group of people who I highly recommend it. If you have 2 brain cells in your head, you'll watch this 6-part docuseries, and you'll be like, sorry, maybe you shouldn't watch it then, but it's a 6-part docuseries about these people who they all they run a conference in Mexico called so it's in Acapulco. It's Anarchapulco. So the whole conference is about like, we need to bring anarchy to the world. Like government sucks, which is true. Government sucks, but they want to abolish all government. And so the whole idea as you watch every episode is like, these people are essentially children. Like they each, you're introduced to these characters early on, and they're like, yeah, government's bad and everything's bad. But you start to realize like they're actually really just damaged people. And once you hear their stories, every one of them has the same story, which is like their parents were jackasses. Their parents were awful scumbags who were doing illegal things. And so the state, the police, raided their homes. And so then these poor children who are essentially the victims of bad parents, instead of blaming their parents, they blame the state. And so they become anarchists, and they move to Mexico, where they live in a state of anarchy. And what happens is like people start dying and then they don't have the fucking wherewithal to blame the fact that they live in a lawless system. They're constantly looking for excuses and unable to look at the damage in themselves. And that's so the whole time watching Superfly, I was thinking the same thing. I was just like, this guy was raided by humans, so he blames all humans, so he wants to wipe all humans out, whereas the turtles are like, no, humans are just like us. They're afraid of things that they don't understand, so we need to bring understanding to the humans. And that is such a perfect tale of, I mean, even like, take anything, take fucking Planet of the Apes has the same themes of like, can we all get along, where there's all it takes is one evil force in whatever encampment to go pick a fight and make an entire race, an entire species look bad, right? And so those themes were in this, and it was fun and enjoyable, and was like the best origin story of the turtles ever. And then it all ends with them going to high school, you know, like just being normal. Like now we can just live normal lives. And that's what'll be fun about the sequel, is seeing how it's like Spider-Man. They'll just be living normal lives in high school. And then Shredder will show up or whatever. So that's where for me, it's like, it's high on the list for its story.
Yeah.
Very high. And
Yeah,
because
and
it's complete.
I see. Yeah, it's like, yeah, everything kind of gels. It's just like, it's the, I don't know. Yeah, it definitely doesn't beat this top 3. It's just with Guardians and this movie, I'm like, this movie. I mean, it's. I think Guardians is just a little more heart-wrenching in those regards, and I think that like it still kind of tells
you
a similar
fall in
story,
love with a cybernetic,
but you're like, yeah, you're really in these characters,
raccoon. You know,
like
and
really,
maybe you do that with these turtles, but it's
and I
more in a comedic way.
I think
you know?
in one way, I think also in one way, I think Turtles has a lot of baggage that it has to weigh with it. Yeah, sure. Guardians is part of a giant ongoing huge franchise that is Marvel, but with the way that James Gunn has always made those movies, he's kind of made them very much his own. And really, I don't know there's that many people that are like hounding about the, you know, where the characters came from or all their little origin story stuff. And I know that I'm fairly sure that he's really well versed in the comics and the characters and where they came from and all that stuff. But like, it never hinders you. You're never like stopped it. All I'm getting at is there's no Easter eggs in Guardians where you're like, oh, did you see that? That's from this comic issue. Like, most people are not going to see that. With Turtles, I think there's a lot more, because Turtles is more in the zeitgeist as it is. So you're going to see the go ninja stuff, and you're going to see all the stuff that's like, oh, that's a reference to that part. That's that reference to that. It's reference to those, you know?
Dude, something worthy of note was the it was bizarre in the driving scene where they were friends with their cousin mutants, and they were like sitting in the back, and April's like, do something, and they're trying to decide if they should act or not. Something totally bizarre happened, which is that they were listening to Four Non-Blondes, right? I have that right. Four Non-Blondes.
Morning, and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and
like one of the best songs ever. So it started out with the actual song, and then it changed to the He-Man meme version of the song, and that blew my fucking gourd. I was like, I mean, if I had a smile on the whole time, I was beaming when that happened, because it wasn't just the song. It was like the I mean, if nobody has seen the He-Man Four Non-Blondes, What's Going On cartoon, where it brings in elements from the He-Man cartoon, that was super random, because you're not dealing with a song, you're dealing with the meme version of a song, and it's one of the best like weird remixes ever, where I don't know the history of that YouTube video, but I'm assuming that it was just made by somebody versus being some kind of official version of the song. And then they even to the point where they even left in like the sound effects from He-Man, you know, where like at one point the skull guy is like, "Yarr!" You know, like I was like, my mind was blown in that moment that they were incorporating one of my favorite YouTube videos ever, you know? So
we just need to get G.I. Joe. We just need to get a G.I. Joe reference in there.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
I'm a computer.
If they're sitting there watching like pork chop sandwiches, I'd be like, Now they're
That's my
fucking with my
childhood.
nostalgia. Yeah,
That's
now
me.
yeah, now they're
That's
plugged
me.
in
Okay, I had one other thing I wanted to talk about, but you'd kind of covered it. I just wanted to state as far as the origin story goes, I did think that because even personally for me, I've written comics or written stories or whatever, and it is complicated when you're trying to because initially when you think about most superheroes, there's two origins that happens with every superhero character, and these are superhero characters, even though they're not traditional superheroes, right?
Yeah.
With every superhero character, there is like the first origin, which is usually the tragedy, the trauma, the thing that happens and then there's the thing that happens that makes them the superhero. And and I think with Turtles, it's a little muddy because it's like it's four things really, because it's like we have to nail down the mutant thing. And every single origin has done that. But then like the transition from the mutant thing to the ninja thing that's where it's really messy, because it's like that's a really weird thing to get to. Oh, they learned karate from this rat whose owner was a martial artist who had this revenge plot with this other dude who's the villain of the story. That's really
that's one of my favorite ways of speaking is a Splinter. This is how he talked in the first three movies.
Oh, fun fact.
No, fuck you. I have too much fun.
Fun fact.
Like
the voice of that version of Splinter from the first movie is Kevin Clash.
Okay.
Kevin Clash. Kevin Clash is famous for voicing Elmo in Sesame Street.
What? what a huge contrast.
It's a weird turn, right? Anyway, back to my point I was making though. Point I was making though is I just like kind of what you were saying is that I felt like this version, because they were going through the logical steps to kind of get to where the karate aspect of it was, it felt cleaner. And I also think it was cleaner that they were like, well, the villain's not going to be Splinter, and apparently Splinter was going to be a villain in this version. They changed it, and I'm glad they did. And they do kind of a cleaner version because they're like, let's have the villain come from where they come from as far as TCRI, and how that all ties in with the mutant stuff. So I thought that was nice, how it was very clean cut on how they went through the origin story versus adding that element. Like, I love that stuff. Like, that's my favorite part of the Ninja Turtles is the Shredder versus Splinter and him training, like all of that. I love that stuff. But I like how they kind of made this a much smoother origin story and just focused on the mutants and the teenage stuff. So that's really all I wanted to say about that.
So I think,
but I think
we
we're
agree,
nailing
though,
it.
Put it at number five, right?
And SP doesn't agree. He's like, I have no idea why you'd put this at number 10. But again, based off all the things we talked about, when you're talking about movies, it's just a very well done story, and I think everything hits.
Did SB say that, or did SB
say
something like
SB said better than Fast X? I still don't get how this film is close to top 10.
He's talking about Fast X. He thinks Fast X should be lower.
Well, maybe I misinterpreted what he said. But okay.
Fast X we put it above Asteroid City, which is more of an indictment of Asteroid City being not that great. It's good, it's high up, but it's not that great. Whereas Fast X really brought the fun. It embodied it as the theme of this year, other than family, has been embodying the essence of your franchise, because so many of these movies are franchise movies, and Guardians does that most fucking certainly. Turtles did for sure. So did Mission Impossible. So did John Wick. So did Creed. I just so on and so forth.
Somebody else mentioned Super Brooklyn Knight 007. Welcome to the channel. It's the first time I've ever seen you on the channel, so welcome. This movie belongs on the bottom. It makes TMNT 3 look good. I'm like, I don't know what your expectations for movies are, but like, to me, this was perfectly well written.
That might be a joke. Like,
maybe, I don't know.
Like, that might be a new person who doesn't know about Cocaine Bear and Knights of the Zodiac.
What are you, Charlie? Get that down. Get that down.
No, at number 5, stop hot redhead genocide. I'm just trying to spread awareness. I think everybody needs to be aware that these redheads are being eradicated right in front of us.
Right in front of
us, and it's a tragedy. Anyway, what I need.
But
to
I
do
will
is
say,
pull
isn't
up-
it the longest title
uh,
in this list?
It is, and that's why I was going to try to copy and paste it, but I'm going to put it in.
Write it
custom
down.
here
I
like
want to
this.
see what is the longest, like,
So
because
it's
between Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1,
Teenage
Dungeons and Dragons,
Ninja
Honor Among Thieves,
Mutant.
I don't know, Indiana Jones, and the Dial of Destiny, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and the Quantumania.
Right
I don't know.
now, Dead
As
Reckoning.
written-
Dead Reckoning is the longest one as of
Right,
now.
but you put that giant dash.
Well,
in there, so-
the dash is canon. The dash is like as it's listed on IMDb. That's usually what I run off of.
So it's technically
So,
with the dash.
Technically,
yeah,
I could get rid of the dash
the
and we
longest
could
title.
see, but the dash is part of the title.
So, and I actually think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is slightly shorter than Honor Among Thieves. Also, by the way, did Seth Rogen make an appearance at the beginning of this movie? I forget. He didn't.
he
welcome
did. He
people to
did
the-
a Paramount Pictures thing where
Because
he
we
was
talked
like,
about that last time. We said
Yeah.
like every Paramount movie has this thing on the front of it that they want to thank people for coming to the movies. I just think that's interesting.
and he did
Maybe-
the whole like
I think
thanks
it's
for
classy.
but for him he was like thanks for letting me continue doing what I love, which is making movies. Which
I love
isn't necessarily what anybody else said. You know, they're just like,
Well, it
"Thanks for-
wasn't
thanks
as
for
bad
being
as
here in
the-
person."
As if we were ranking those, I think the worst one was the Dungeons and Dragons one with Hugh Grant looking like I wants to go home.
Yeah, like he was like,
I want to go home.
I don't give a damn.
What time is it? I want to go home.
Yeah.
God,
Okay, I need to
read
make
bloody
this-
dialogue.
Trying
That's
to
my favorite.
make this a bit smaller.
Clean
but
her
it-
up.
It won't let me.
Clean her up
so.
a little bit.
Anyway, so that's where we're at. Oppenheimer, Beau Is Afraid, Infinity Pool, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, John Wick 4, Tetris Air, Creed 3, Sound of Freedom, The Flash, Fast X, Asteroid City, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Shazam, Fear of the Gods, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, Megan Missing the Machine, Barbie, Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, Scream 6, the Super Mario Brothers movie, Ant-Man, The Wasp, Quantumania, Renfield, Evil Dead, Pup's Exorcist, Magic Mike's Last Dance, Transformers, Rise of the Beast, Knock at the Cabin, Sidious, The Red Door, Last Voyage of the Demeter, Plane, Haunted Mansion, Cocaine Bear, Knights of the Zodiac. I did do that. It may have sounded like it took a micro breath, but that was me hesitating for some reason. I did that in mostly one breath. So fuck you. Shut up.
I wasn't.
Everybody, no,
Okay,
shut up.
wacko.
Stop. No,
I don't really care.
everybody,
It's fine.
everybody, shut your face.
I don't really give two rats. Asses.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, it's I mean, we're at like the midpoint of the year, so you know, if
And it's the end of the summer. I want to go on record. For me, it's always been May to the first 2 weeks of August is summer movie season. Some people will be like, but that's spring. I'm like, no, nobody's watching movies at the end of August. It's not summer movie. It's not special. So it's May because people are kind of still in school, but like people are ready to leave. And also Marvel has kind of taken the spot of the first week of May forever.
Yeah.
So it's the beginning of summer. And then it's May, June, July. And then we get to August. And August is really like it's always like up in the air if it's going to be a good movie or bad movie. This year, we got the best movie. One of the best movies in August, much like the first Guardians of the Galaxy. First Guardians of the Galaxy came out and it was an August release.
Yeah.
So August is always
versus Demeter. Like you and I both thought
Wanted to
Demeter
see
is going to
that.
be good. It's going to be
it looks good.
It looks good, and then it just
It pooped, it floundered.
it
But yeah,
pooped.
no, but like I always think that what studios do is that they get to the end of the year and they're like, oh, well, we have this one other big movie that we want to release, but we're really not sure how well it's going to do. Like we have our Barbie where we're going to put in July because we know it's going to make a lot of money. And that's like the highest point. That's usually like the big high point in the summer. It's the tent pole, essentially the tent pole, right? And then you get to August and you're like, oh crap, what do we have? And then you're like, well, this movie, like it's going to do well. So it's a gamble. Let's put it in August. And historically, if you look at it, it's like that's kind of what happens. Is there's always like one movie that's either like it still makes a lot of money. It might not be critically acclaimed, but it still makes a lot of money. Like I think even the previous Turtles movies came out in August, or one of them did. So as far as the live action ones, so it's like that first week of August. This was the first week of August movie. Demeter was its second week of August. We're getting in the third week. I think we're seeing Blue Beetle. We might see some. I don't know. There's a bunch of movies I actually want to see. Like there's Blue Beetle, there's Gran Turismo, which they have been hounding us to see for the since last year. I feels like they've been putting a lot of money into that movie.
Yeah.
Which I still think looks good. I still want to see that.
Yeah.
And then there's Strays, which is the Will Ferrell dog movie that's like Homeward Bound, but like the dirty version of that. Kinda like Soft as Barbie was.
The sausage fest of talking dog movies. Right. Let's make a dirty
sausage party
movie.
version of yes. So it's
Yeah.
like that. So I'm like, I kind of want to see that
because we live in an era, we live in a time of nothing is sacred. So let's take everything that made anybody feel good as a kid. Like the only thing left is to make a Barney movie where Barney is a rapist. Because everything, like you got Winnie the Pooh as a serial killer.
You had me excited as a killer,
and
but now
like,
you said a rapist.
No, and I mean that because like everybody's been a killer, so now make Barney a rapist, and you just keep taking all these sacred like childhood things and making them like awful. So let's take Homeward Bound and let's make it for adults.
That wouldn't work.
Sausage Party already did its thing. Like,
that wouldn't work.
People are like, let's take the thing that I loved as a kid and let's make it.
I still thought
dirty and dark.
Strays still look fun. Strays still looks really funny, and I think if you're a huge pet lover, I think it'll be fun. So we might want to see that. But it's like we're getting to a point where it's like, oh crap, there's like 3 or 4 movies I want to see, but it's like we're at the end of summer and it's not just like one clear movie. So we're kind of back to what we were doing beforehand, and we're gonna have to just like draw straws and be like, okay, we're seeing this one.
Yeah, and
so
then we'll be in Oscar season where like we'll see if anything beats Oppenheimer.
Well, there's a couple of like Oscar contenders that there was one that a lot of people have talked about we didn't see. There's also the movie Talk to Me, which I also want to see, which a lot of people have said really great things about.
Yeah.
It's the horror film. So I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know which one we're going to see next. Might be a Toinkos.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Yeah, I did.
No, you said,
or maybe
you said. I think you said Toinkos, which is
so. That's the drunkest thing I've said.
Yeah,
it's not a coin toss. It's a
Toinkos, which
a Toinkos.
Because you're Ringo fucking Starr. Anyway, so before we wrap up, I just want to remind everybody to please help us stop sexy hot redhead genocide. I'm going
You're not even married to a redhead.
And I know. Okay, wait, hang on. Stop. Wait, here we go. Sexy. Okay, save. And this is what I mean. This is what I mean, though, McCurdy. You are married to a redhead. I won't disrespect you. Or would it be respectful for me to say that your wife is a sexy hot redhead? I'm gonna opt out of giving your wife.
If we were at
I'm
a
not gonna give your wife
right
any
now,
adjectives.
I would slap you.
I'm gonna leave adjectives out of.
Keep your wife's name.
keep adjectives about my wife out of your mouth. But regardless of McCurdy being married to just a redhead, I'm not going to put adjectives on it. A redhead. I want everybody to help us rise up, take to the streets, start tweeting about start xing about hashtag stop sexy hot redhead genocide. This movie is just an example of how awful Hollywood has become, where it is murdering sexy hot redheads in front of us, and nobody's doing anything about it. So we're taking a stand.
When did this become?
Meanwhile,
what happened?
Now let's toast. Now we're going to toast.
What
we're
happened?
Toast. Oh, you want to keep talking about it? Okay, let's keep talking about hashtag stop sexy hot redhead genocide, including McCurdy's wife.
Now you're just being silly.
But tonight's toast goes to
tonight.
the
we're
guy
going to toast to the man who, like Charlie said,
he cares.
He cares.
Apparently, he really cares about this.
I'm with
whoever said it. Whoever said it, where they were like, "I don't care that much for Seth Rogen," and I was like, "Yeah, I get that." Like half of me's like, the other half of me is like, "No, he does good work. He is talented." I
Here-
like
I'll-
seeing
I'll say
something
this.
like this. This is a bit. This reinvigorates my positivity towards
Right.
Mr. Rogen.
Right. Okay. I will say this about one thing, good thing about Seth Rogen, I'd say. So one of my favorite YouTubers, they don't post YouTube videos anymore because they're like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. But they always made some of the best YouTube videos was Every
why?
Frame of Painting.
Oh,
Huh?
okay.
Every Frame of Painting. Did you used to watch Every Frame of Painting?
Yeah. Do you know why they quit?
He quit because he was getting work, basically. He was an
Oh.
editor. The guy who wrote that, they were editors. They live in Canada. They were getting work. People wanted to respond to him. Even said like they were getting attention from Hollywood people because they were all like everyone was watching these videos and they're like, these are amazing. Seth Rogen even like I think mentioned it to him, or he even said something on a podcast or video that said like, well, even like the Every Frame of Painting guys were saying this about comedy. So it's like when you know that he is like in tune with like how people are perceiving and analyzing films, like you could tell like he's the stoner version of Tom Cruise, but he doesn't do stunts. Like he's the comedy version of that.
Yeah.
He's the comedy version of Tom Cruise, and he's a stoner.
Yeah, and I like to think that he cares. I do like again the amount of I don't think that pop culture references are creative. I genuinely don't think they are. I think they're more lazy than creative.
Sure.
So
Sure.
like I said, in this movie it was appropriate for the
It's just
turtles, and then
teenagers.
it was inappropriate for select other characters, but it wasn't there. That was only like a couple times, so it was easily overlooked, but or ignored. But overall, the clear kind of like spearhead figure, the figurehead of this, the guy who introduced the movie and was like, "Hey, thanks everybody for coming to see this," is in fact Seth Rogen. So. Who did right by a franchise that isn't always well looked after. So
That is I would say yeah.
yeah. So thank you, Seth,
Going
for
full bottle with that.
delivering a pleasant surprise, a movie that I could sit in and I just had I had a Joker smile on my face pretty much the whole time watching this movie. So. Let me cue up my closer here and
Okay.
there were no weed references, so at least he kind of held back.
He had to hold back.
Even though he had
That's
four,
why he had two other writers. That's why he had two other writers, because they were probably like, we got to clean this up.
Yeah, he had four giant green
spray everything with
humanoid
Febreze.
people, and even
That's the
then he
only
never
green he
made a
needed in the
weed
movie.
reference. Exactly.
It's the
Like,
only
he
green
never
he needed in the movie was the turtles.
Yeah. So thank you, Seth, for doing right by the turtles and making what we agree is the best animated, if not the best, turtles movie to date.
Cool.
Yeah. To Seth.
Yeah. To Seth.